Hi, I'm Hot Gamer Dad. I am someone with enough time to make a game called Satty RPG, but not enough to make it good. If you are someone who enjoys 90s references, bad comedy, and an ensemble of amusing flavour text, then you need to go to hotgamerdad.itch.io and change your worldview on how ridiculous a video game can possibly get.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2,
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Hey RPG Maker Cola listeners, welcome to RPG Maker Cola Season 2. This is your fizzy, soda-filled source of content for game development opinions that mean very little in the grand scheme of things. It's your favourite RPG Maker podcast, RPG Maker Cola. I'm your host Benny, also known as Cash, also known as the Puzzle Snob, also known as Host with the Most, and this is the place for you. It's a chill space where we get together skilled developers from the RPG Maker community to chat cordially and occasionally non-cordially about game development, game design, and probably a whole bunch of unrelated other stuff too. It's casual, it's cool, it's cola. Today I have two guests that I'm really excited to introduce, and now I actually think they're very unique, and I think we need to just stop here and bask in this interesting idea that we don't necessarily have to have people that focus on games alone. Yes, that's right. They work on their own games, sure, but mostly they are more well known perhaps for their art and their resources that they contribute to the community, at least in the RPG Maker community. Our first guest is a person who's been a part of the community for a long time, since the RPG Revolution days and earlier. Having been involved with RPG Maker now for over 10 years, they started out after moving on from a program called The Games Factor, where they made Mega Man clone games and simple maze and puzzle games. They've had a project that they've worked on for many years, since 2005 I believe, and it's been going through various changes, and they've moved between different RPG Maker versions, but each time they wanted to use their own graphics as the settings within the game were quite different from usual RPGs. Then, Holder's Animated Battlers began, a project which this guest started to give everyone who's developing an RPG Maker game a chance of having a consistent and solid collection of battlers. And create they did. Starting near the end of 2011, they settled on a style they wanted to bring, and for the past couple of years they've just been taking what they've learned over that time and started their collection new. There's also been posting so much in the communities in the past, including RPG Maker Central, RPG Maker Web, and other places. They're a very important and central community member and have been for some time. And now they focus on creating content for others to use and bring to life their games. I'm very happy, and it's a pleasant thing for me to introduce the incredible and talented artist and developer, Holder. Hi.
Thank you very, very much. Hello. Wow. What an introduction. Like partway through that, I was like, you're actually talking about me.
Yeah, it's really good to have you on board.
And wow, you make me sound so old.
Oh, I've been there too.
Oh, wow. That's great to be here.
Yeah. So our second guest is also someone who's been here for quite a while. They've created many an asset pack, so many in their years. They have created the Omega Modern RPG Assets pack, which includes over 100 character sprites, and that isn't even counting the animals, aliens, or robots. They've been a pixel artist for over a decade, but you probably know them most for their incredible, wonderful time fantasy asset packs. They've created the style to evoke the feeling of classic SNES RPGs, which have become an expansive set of graphics for game development that has helped people worldwide achieve their dreams. Game developers all over have used these graphics to bring their worlds to life. And it includes a pack with 80 plus RPG characters, a fantasy tileset pack, monsters pack, winter tiles, dwarves versus elf sprites, animals, farms and fort, ships tileset, just so much. They've also created an underwater Metroidvania prototype called Isel's Observatory, an action exploration platformer Symbiote, which was an IGMC or Indie Game Maker Contest contender and winner, prize winner, and free browser game Man of War. It's just so much, there's so much they've created, I can't begin to, encapsulate it all in one bio, but I'm very, very happy to have this incredible artist on board. It's the wonderful and fantastic Jason Perry, or Final Boss Blues.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, thank you to both of you. It's just really, really good to have you both on board. Be waiting for this one for a while. Now that we're well acquainted, let's move on to our next section. It's Buzz Corner. Welcome to the Buzz Corner. This is the place where we talk about what RPG Maker games and otherwise indie games are gaining buzz at the moment for us. Well, they could have gained buzz in the past, it's not too restrictive. If you can, I've asked our guests if they can think of a game to bring one game to talk about that they're pretty interested in. They don't have to have played it, just has to have a game page or something that looks interesting to them. I'm bringing a game called Long Gone Days. This is a story about a person having been deployed to their first mission. Their name's Rourke. They leave the cause base for the very first time, only to discover the dark truth about the operation they're a part of and the consequences of deserting an inescapable war. So it's set in the real world. You'll apparently encounter several language barriers, so you have to recruit interpreters in order to communicate with others. You also have to keep morale high, so you choose dialogue options wisely because they'll affect your party members' morale, affecting how they perform during battles. And while doing so, you have to keep in mind that each character has different personalities and motivations. And in Long Gone Days, there's two battle systems. You can either use Rourke's rifle and spot your enemies and take down your targets, and there's different modes. There's a sniper mode as well. So apparently there's no random encounters as well. It's just front view turn-based battles with a body targeting system, and every battle is kind of related to the plot, so it's kind of handcrafted in that way. Now, this game went into early access in March of 2018. I haven't had the chance to play it yet, but looking at the screenshots, it just looks amazing. I love the art style of the futuristic kind of pristine white walls and floor, and then you've got these interesting futuristic hairstyles and fashion, but they're kind of army focused, and then just the lighting looks really great. I'm just struck by the awesome detailed nature of the pixel art, and it's kind of it's a little bit sometimes rare to see this amount of detail put into an RPG Maker game like this. Actually, I'm not too sure if it is RPG Maker or not anymore. I think maybe it used to be. I'm not too sure, but at least it is an RPG, and I'm really excited when this gets completed to give this a go. Yeah, Long Gone Days, really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the screenshots here, and you've definitely chose a right game for the two of us to have a look at as well, because the art is just, it's spot on. It's pixel art, but it's not too busy. They capture a lot of detail with a few.
I recognize this one from a long time ago. I've seen these graphics before, and it looks like it's come a long way since then, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I've known about this game for a while. It was sort of... I kind of was like, wait, it's not released in completion yet, but it's still developing and in early access. I'm like, interesting that they decided to release it early access as well, because this isn't the type of game that you usually have an early access version of the game to kind of iterate upon. I'm a little bit curious about that. Apparently the demo was released in 2016, and they've just been releasing the demos to make improvements and stuff. And I guess it's a good way to get money as well while you're developing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very interested in this game. Holder,
yeah.
What have you got to bring to the Buzz Corner today?
I am bringing someone that I've been watching quite a lot of on Twitch. She's been developing a game for a while with a zero budget, and it's totally community driven. It's Raindrop Chronicles by Rose Rainblood. Basically, it's a bit of a light-hearted story. You're a stowaway in a barrel, and when you get to your location, you find out the barrel can talk. So it's like I say, it's very light-hearted. The custom character isn't really the main focus. It's more or less along the lines of this barrel, who's called Carol, trying to find the rest of her family. So it's got all sorts of different bits and bobs in there. The romance options are in there. It's really good at planning everything out. She's got a lore bible where the whole world is there for her to build the game around. It's great Yeah.
Because interesting to see, it's sort of like a community project where they there's such a thing as raindrops, and then they kind of people on Twitch chat can interact with it and stuff. Do you know anything about that sort of thing?
Yeah, she does quizzes every stream as well, and you can get more raindrops that way by answering the questions correctly. You can have your own character in the game. Yeah, it's actually a really fun stream as well to watch, and sometimes I'll have it on the background just while I'm working on stuff, just listening to what she's working on next.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You collect these raindrops and stuff, and then apparently by being in chat you can type something ! Raindrops to find out how many you've collected, and then you can use them on stuff. I guess the raindrops required to make a character can be they sort of you can base your characters and bring your characters into the game sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she has a right to reject or include the submission or make suggestions and things like that. So it's really interesting.
It is really good. Like I say, it's obviously all the romance options as well. You can choose whether you want to be romanced and in which way and everything like that. And she does her own graphics as well. She does a lot of everything really. Even bits of code that she needs to do. If she doesn't know how to do it, she'll find out. It's just not one of these people that I just want someone else to do it for us. Even with editing sprites, see some episodes she'll just dedicate 3 hours to just creating this new sprite of someone picking up an item.
This looks like Celiana's tiles combined with some other ones, I think, if I'm correct. I'm not too sure. Maybe, I'm not too sure. It looks familiar.
Yeah, it pieces together quite a lot of stuff, but yeah.
And I'm seeing 234 devlogs, YouTube things,
yes.
how to make a talking character sprite, how to design starter gear, how to make an outfit look good on a sprite. So it's all these nice tutorials that are kind of giving it context and stuff.
The whole development cycle, it's all there, it's all laid out, and like I say, even from her having to check the forums to see how to do something, that's all in there as well. So it's all the trials and tribulations of actually making a game. Great to follow. So can't wait to give it a try.
That's a great resource. Yeah, awesome. Jason, what have you got to bring to the Buzz Corner today?
Well, I haven't played much in the sense of RPG Maker games lately, but I do really like to look at screenshots, images, trailers, and see what people are able to come up with. I picked out 2 games today because they use my own assets, and I'm not necessarily in a conceited way, but because it's really fulfilling for me to see what people are able to create with something that I've given them and how they make it their own. So 2 of these games that I've picked out today are really impressive, and I think they're a really good way to show off the kinds of things that people can do with these graphics. I have Haven, Secret of Caledria by Neo Soul Gamer, and I've been following this game for a long time, and because I really like the way that he's able to take these graphics and make them his own. And then I also been looking at Legion Saga DX by Arc Magic and Deck Killer. And this is really impressive to me because of the kind of maps that Deck Killer is able to come up with using these graphics. And he also can really make them his own. And it feels like it has its own style, even though the underlying assets are actually the same.
Deck Killer is one of those developers who have been around the community for a long time. I've known them for a while now. I helped create a chain game with them, but it's really their mapping has always been something that's really greatly composed. It was almost in the early days, it was almost like a competition to see who could create the best composed maps, because there was just they were using the same tiles and rips and stuff, but it was let's see who can make the best stuff, and it was a nice competitive environment, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really impressive. The compositions they come up with really elevate this stuff to the next level.
It might be not something that people focus as much on nowadays with smaller maps and so on. They don't really go for the large scale, retro-ish kind of sprawling maps as much, I suppose. That's interesting because they use your maps in a certain way. I've had another guest on board the podcast. This is might be a little bit early to kind of talk about this, but they were what's their name? Davion Gooden, the creator of She Dreams Elsewhere, who used the time fantasy, I think it was, tiles in a unique way. They kind of edited it. I was wondering whether you'd seen that game and you knew what they were doing with your tiles. Yeah,
I've been following that game. It's a really, really unique spin on them. And that goes way beyond just using them in an original way. He seems to have completely altered the entire vibe they give off, and that's really impressive.
Yeah.
I listened to that episode, and that same one you also had Z-Surf, and he uses the same graphics. And it's interesting because they look completely different in his game versus in She Dreams Elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So it's cool how they can get so much variety by building and editing off of the same base, and they can really make it individual for their own game. And that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah. But these two games here, Haven, Secret of Caledria, and Legion Saga DX, they have a really nice, retro vibe to them. I think in both of their descriptions, they're basically saying, I played classic JRPGs from the 90s, I got overwhelming nostalgia, and I wanted to get a fresh experience of them. And for anyone who wants to do that, I suppose that's one of the reasons why your tiles are so amazing, because they can be used either for the newish, like you got Ephemeral Tale and the Davion Gooden's game She Dreams Elsewhere, but then you got these other games which kind of harken back, and the graphics are so flexible they could be used either way. I really like that about them. So yeah, these games look good. So yeah, everyone check out Long Gone Days, Raindrop Chronicles, Haven Secrets of Caledria, and Legion Saga DX. Go check those out. Cool, so that was the Buzz Corner. Now we'll move on to our next section. We've been playing games. Maybe? Have we been playing games? Yeah. Maybe. Hey you there, you passerby. Have you been playing games? If not, that's all cool. But if so, you can listen here, as each of us talk about a game we've been currently playing or have played in the past, and explain what we liked or disliked about it. Now I'm going to bring a game. This one is a really interesting and unique game. It's like an interactive story or video game developed by the Australian studio Mountains and published by Annapurna. It centers on the story of a 25-year-old named Florence Yeo as she lives her daily routine and meets Krish, a cellist she sees in the park. So it features not much written dialogue like when they have conversations. It's like two people putting up speech bubbles, and you kind of put the speech bubbles together by placing the puzzle pieces in the correct order. So apparently this developer was inspired by Monument Valley and games that didn't have violence in them and stuff. So they kind of said, what if I made a romance-centered story that was kind of aimed towards the general public? So yeah, what I liked about this game is that it took the little conversations that we have and the little moments we have, whether in romance or otherwise, but basically centering around romance, where communication starts off really difficult, and so there's lots of little puzzle pieces you have to put in the right order and things like that, literally. And then as the relationship kind of goes forward, the puzzle pieces become easier to put together, and so there's less puzzle pieces, and it's kind of metaphorical in that way. It really, cleverly uses gameplay to represent the nature of the relationship between them. For example, when they're having an argument, all the puzzle pieces of the conversation become jagged and they have sharp edges, and you're like, whoa, something's wrong, kind of thing. So it's very minimalistic. It conveys all this with a sort of wordless charm, and I think it's pretty meaningful as well. It's quite sad as well. So if you don't like sad games, then maybe steer clear of this one. It's a little bit affecting, but I still recommend it nonetheless. Florence is a great video game.
That looks really good. Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. It definitely, especially with you saying the pieces are easier to put together the more you know someone. That's so true. It really is. No, I like that. I've never heard of this before, but that's really good. It's won a lot of awards as well.
And it's very short. It's 45 minutes long. So I think it's pretty cheap. Hopefully it is. cheap on the store. When I got it, it was less than $1, so it wasn't very expensive at all. But it was worth the money in my opinion. It was a very eye-opening game and made me think about the way that I make games as well, to be metaphorical in its gameplay.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's a good experience to have. Looks like definitely. Oh.
I'd spend more on a movie, so might as well spend $1 on a game that gives me roughly the same experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Florence. Holder, what games have you been playing? Maybe.
Oh, the one I always go back to. I have a little collection. I'm a little retro collector as well, but every game I sort of go back to is Disgaea. It's me one game I always return to if I need to chill out, if I need to come away from things. That's it for me. Not any one particular in the series. There's 5 games and the 6th one coming out on the Switch soon. But yeah, no, I enjoy them. I'm going to make a lot of enemies here, but I like it a lot better than Final Fantasy Tactics and Fire Emblem. Sorry. But I do prefer it over them.
Now, I have not played a single Disgaea game, I'm sorry. But explain to me what the appeal of the game is and what you like most about the game, because I'm very interested. I've heard it's very good. Yeah,
well, it's sort of, you'll know Fire Emblem. You'll know the mechanics of it's like chess, but with like characters. And, that's how I describe it to people that don't know what these sorts of tactical games are. But it's very over-the-top anime demon characters. Basically, the appeal is everything can level up. You can increase the stats of everything. It's not just characters. It's the weapons they use. They have souls within each weapon that you can level up and transfer between different weapons and armors. Items you can level up as well. You can then, even when you level up a character, you can basically regenerate them back to level 1 and keep some of the stats. So the next time they get up to the higher level, it'll be even stronger. So it's all just all pieces together, and reoccurring enemies are always there, and each game brings a different mechanic. Yeah. Sorry.
Sounds like it's like pretty complex gameplay, and it says here also like extremely high maximum stats and humorous dialogue. Like it's apparently one of the like main things is that it's quite funny game as well. Did the humor resonate with you of this?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's the 4th game. Your main character is an overlord that is a vampire, but will no longer drink blood. So all you'll do from now on is eat sardines.
Yeah.
And it's just he's a prinny instructor, which is the prinnies are basically if someone's been a criminal in their lifetime, they're punished by being this little penguin character, and they only get they get fed once a month, which is 1 sardine, and he's basically gone from being this massive overlord to a little prinny instructor. But
so he's sort of like a cynical, like power hungry, like you're like the anti-hero sort of thing, and you're fighting against the heroes. Is that what it?
Yeah. There's one of the games where it's actually the human world tries to invade the demon world. You'll have ultimate heroes try to come into it, and you basically take them down. You've got an ultimate weapon, which is a character, but she's in her infancy, so she's very sort of like timid. It's just so weird, the characters that can be in it.
Do you have a favourite installment in the series?
It's probably the first one I really got into, which was the 3rd one, where you're in like a school for demons. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
why
very.
Is that?
I don't know. It's very sort of like hard to differentiate them all. They all have their all unique characters. Like you have like a son of an overlord who basically wants to grow up and defeat his dad to be the overlord. Yeah. But I don't know, the 5th one's quite good where all the overlords come together. Yeah. Because there's one main one that's defeating all these other overlords.
Sounds like they've each got their unique selling point as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that always takes me time, because you can go on it, you don't have to do anything in the story, you can just jump in the items world and just do a few levels in the item and level up the item a few bits and bobs. So
it's got some bite-sized gameplay in there as well that you can kind of chunk at it. Yeah.
I mean, it's even got like an open cheat mode, which one of the characters will appear. You can basically boost your experience, boost the money you get, but you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something else, so you can do an item run where you'll just be getting loads of money, or you can just level up your skills. So it is sort of like a cheat menu, but it sort of takes with one hand and gives with the other.
It's an interesting concept. Well, that makes me want to try Disgaea now. I might give it a go.
It is fun. It's definitely fun.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Jason, what have you been playing maybe lately?
Well, it's hard for me to get into something really intense or story-based that takes a lot of focus. So I've been playing a little bit of Minecraft here and there because it's a great kind of game where you can put on and not have to pay too much attention, where you can just relax and listen to a podcast or put on a YouTube video on the second screen and just have Minecraft to keep your fingers busy while you play. So I've been really enjoying it for that reason.
Yeah, Minecraft being the game. Obviously, everyone knows what Minecraft is, but would you rather do you play single player or multiplayer usually?
I play pretty much on my own. There are a couple of servers that I've joined, but they're small and nobody's ever really on anyway, so it feels like I'm playing alone, even though I click on the multiplayer screen to get into it.
Do you prefer...
And I kind of like that vibe. You know, it's a very relaxing thing for me. You know, I don't have to take it too seriously.
Yeah, so you're less probably about the intensity of the multiplayer kind of PvP and the vibes of like being part of a bustling community as much as something to zone out to that's kind of zen and you feel like you can just kind of be yourself in kind of thing by yourself and sort of a solitary zen experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's also nice to, with the multiplayer stuff, it's nice to be friendly. You know, I'd like to be able to bake a cake for somebody or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But something, PvP is a little too intensive, you know, but I like to, make a house and show a friend or give somebody food.
Yeah.
Relaxing, easy stuff like that. I've been enjoying that a lot.
When I'm on it, I do the survival mode, but on peaceful. So I totally get that. I mean, we've got 4 people in the house as well that will all sit together and play it on local player, so that's all great to work on something together. So yeah, I do like that game. Definitely right what he's saying. It's a good chill out game.
Can be a nice social experience as well, I feel.
Yeah.
There's not too... I think Minecraft has a very unique kind of set of gameplay features that can allow for different kind of styles of intensity. Because Minecraft has also always been had a sort of kid-oriented thing as well, where children can come and play friendly. And also probably they probably grief each other's builds or whatever, but it actually is quite accommodating to both the Zen kind of peaceful player, and then for those who want to wreck stuff, they can go and do that as well. So I think it's got quite a flexibility with that sort of aspect. Yeah,
I mean, coming from like a parent's point of view, it's Lego without the mess.
Yeah.
They can just go and create whatever and then destroy it, and I haven't got to pick up after them once they're done. So it's great.
I remember playing Lego with my friend, and we would get into arguments over which Lego piece was, what Lego thing was stronger, and we'd try and figure out and negotiate, which spacecraft won or whatever, stuff like that. I suppose in Minecraft they've got inbuilt rules that the computer gets to decide who wins when you fight. So I guess there's a little less fighting in that regard.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I had the first-hand experience. I'm a younger brother. My older's 10 years older than us, and he spent months working on this lush house. It was amazing. And me being me, I decided to walk down the stairs with it. It didn't go well. It ended up in a heap at the bottom of the stairs, and I don't think he's ever forgive us for it.
Oh, no.
So you can't do that sort of thing in Minecraft. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing. People have created amazing, visual masterpieces in Minecraft as well. I think I saw a YouTube clip online where someone recreated the entire, a major part of the Lord of the Rings world, Middle-earth, and entirely within. Actually, it was not one person; it was like a whole community working on it for months.
Yeah, I mean, they've done the entire enterprise from the blueprints. It's just, I would hate to get into that because I would not come off it. I would just dedicate my life to that.
They do role playing as well in that. They've got systems that you can mod Minecraft with to be able to, to create RPG versions, adventures within it. It's just so. Yeah. It's one of the most limitless games that I've seen. Yeah, that's Minecraft.
Yeah, it is. We're gonna have the entire podcast talking about Minecraft.
Yeah. Excellent. Awesome. So those are the games we've been playing, maybe. Go check out Florence, Disgaea, and Minecraft.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we must go to our next subject, which is very serious. It's the topics we must discuss, because this is a podcast, and it's serious. Serious. Welcome to the topics we must discuss. Here's the part of the podcast where we ask the serious questions. Sorry, there's an echo there. I need to fix that. Yeah, our first question is about origins. How did you come about making games and or resources for the engine? And if it's RPG Maker, how did you discover RPG Maker? What's your story? And I'll sort of like preface this also by saying that, you know, if you discovered it through another engine or, you know, however you discovered this game development sphere of community, I'd like to hear how it all started.
Well, a long time ago, in the 90s, many moons ago, I was in school. Like I say, I've got an older brother, and his friend always had the PCs, you know, the new games consoles, and he got a disc that came with a magazine from when that used to happen. And it was mainly, it was something called the Family Doctor, but on it had a program called the Games Factory. And with that, it was like a really sort of like open-ended pseudocode game builder. You could do anything from, it was all 2D based, but you could do anything from platform games to just overhead shooters or anything like that. But it didn't come with resources. So my first ever game that I made was with that, and it was basically just moving a ball through a maze, because that's all I was able to do at the time. I think I was like 14 when I was making it. But it was so simple because you would sprite a ball, and you would sprite a wall, and you would move the ball, and as soon as the ball hit the wall, it would say, this has collided with this object, what do you want to happen? So it was very sort of like eased you into it, you know, if you're making I made some Mega Man clone games. So if you pressed F, it would say, this button has been pressed, what do you want to happen? So you would like create bullet, you would tell it where you want to create it from, and to move it that way, like sideways. You know, so it was very sort of like eased you into it every step of the way. And I had that for years. And then...
Well, we think about RPG Maker, and we think that might be like, that they have some similarities where it's sort of the game engine that's like designed around people who don't know how to code per se.
Yeah, you didn't need to. I mean, there could be more complicated things that you could do, which I learned later on down the line, like having invisible objects around your character for like hanging on to cliff edges. You would just have an invisible square up the top corners of your character, and if it collides with the edge of a cliff, you could make that character hang by stopping the gravity. So then they could jump up onto the ledge. So it was all nice little tricks like that, which I suppose is like the sort of beginning of scripting and things like that, you know, just taking into account for not exactly programming, but like the pseudocode side of it, where you didn't actually have to know the language, you just had to know how it worked. So that was a good few years I was with that. And that's how I started spriting as well, because I didn't want Mega Man. You know, I wanted my own character. Sort of like so it was very basic spriting that I did then. And I was.
What were you using to sprite back then?
It was in the engine. It let you have like a little. It was basically just MS Paint. It wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't anything great. I think Graphics Scale was the first proper spriting program that I used, and I used that for many years. It's now free.
I'm using that right now.
Yeah, it's now free, but it used to be paid. So yeah. But then I was in college. I think it was in the year 2000 it was, and someone had showed us RPG Maker 95, and I couldn't believe something like that was out there, where everything was in place already, and I could do my own graphics for it, and I could, you know, see the battles and everything like that. And it was that and Sim RPG Maker, where it was like a tactics sort of game maker as well. I don't know if that's still around, but that was good. I enjoyed that one. That was a sort of like a Fire Emblem clone maker, you know, where your characters would clash on screen, and then it would show two bigger character models for the attack. So yeah, and then obviously later down the line, when I got the internet in the house and it became more prominent, I looked back up and RPG Revolution was the first forum that I stumbled across.
Mm.
And it was the Posterly Knights edition, I believe it was called, of XP, was dotting around. But it was I actually bought it, not the Posterly Knights one, the proper one, when all the scripters were making these battle plugins, which was for the official one. So, obviously to support something that I've done for years, I thought, yeah, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to make me game, and that's when I got into it. So yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but that's me to a T, really, and then the rest's pretty much documented on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, the first community that I joined, RPG Maker community, was RPG Revolution as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't like super involved in the community, but I think you were quite involved, weren't you?
Yeah, it was from 2005. I think I was a few months after it actually all started up. And after a few years, became a moderator and then a global mod. And then when the main admin sold it on, they needed more people to admin the site because the people they sold it to were just advertisers. So they needed actually people to run it. So myself and Kaz took over running it. And it was, I ran it till the very end when you flicked open the page and it was just gone, which is a shame because obviously that's a lot of history went down it, and it's even the Wayback Machines don't recover a lot. It was a shame to see that place go, but it was fun. It wasn't the most serious of forums. It was fun. It wasn't commercial. It was just people doing it as a hobby. And that's what I like to see,
I enjoyed my time there. Yeah. It was very, I don't know, because people had different experiences, but my time there was quite... it kind of started my development journey. I wouldn't be who I am today without RPG Revolution.
It definitely had its events. I had sometimes in the position I was at, I had to take a step back and think, is this really happening? Really? Is it worth it? Is what you're arguing about really a big deal? So... But yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a story indeed. And there's probably so much more we could go into, but that's a nice, I suppose, summation. And then eventually Holder's animated battlers came along, and that we'll probably go more into detail about that later. But that's how it all started. How about yourself, Jason? How did you come about being interfaced with this game development community and resource making community?
I've been using RPG Maker since RPG Maker 2000. Mm-hmm. It was probably about 2002. A friend of mine in high school introduced it to me, and at first, the only way I could play it was on his computer. So I would go over to his house like every weekend, and we'd work on a fun little game together. And I have a lot of fond memories of that kind of thing, that in-person friendship with him. And then after a year or so of that, I eventually got my own PC at my house. And first thing I did, downloaded RPG Maker 2000. Second thing I did, go online and look up RPG Maker 2000. And then you find all sorts of forums and websites with resources and stuff. So very quickly I got into a website called Dark Dominion, which was a little RPG Maker forum. Back at that time, there were hundreds of small RPG Maker forums all over the place, These days, we only have a couple big ones and Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. But back then, it was all about tons of various little forums, with their own small little communities.
I think everyone had their own forum. I think everyone had their own forum at one point. Yeah.
I had mine at one point.
Yeah.
And I just started, I really enjoyed sharing graphics with the community there. I started off by making edits of the RTP and sharing those and little animations or custom characters. And then I gradually started to be a little more adventurous and make my own original characters. And I've been pretty much doing that same thing ever since. For the past 20 years, I've been making RPG Maker graphics and sharing them, and I love to see what people do with them.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just looking at like a Wayback Machine version of Dark Dominion from 2003.
Don't look at that.
Hey, that's why I'm glad RPG Revolution's gone, so no one can check up on us.
there's like funny. It's got like on the side view, it's got RPG Maker 2000, sure, and then it's at the bottom. It's got emulation as well with like ROM hacks and things like that.
Wow.
We can't talk about that these days.
No. Shush. You didn't say that.
Hey, this is the this is a podcast. I'll get shut down if we get shut down. It's me. It gets shut down. So I'm glad to get cancelled over some ROM hacks. No. Excellent. Wow. And then I suppose you're making resources for Dark Dominion as well, and you started, I guess, doing some artistic stuff from there. I guess we'll get more into like the specific like time fantasy and stuff in the deep dive later on, but was there anything else that kind of connected you to the community in that way?
Oh, I mean, sure, back then I was posting a lot on the forums and, becoming a moderator and eventually, running my own forums and becoming an administrator of various places and all that stuff. But, it's easy to get sucked up into forum drama, many years lost to that when I could have been making graphics instead.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is that so much of that early time was forum drama, and it still echoes today, but like, it's funny. I don't know whether you think today it's just a more peaceful environment, or what do you think happened? Why do you think it was so tumultuous back then?
Oh, because we were all high school kids.
Well, there's high school kids today.
I think that's just natural, right? Today I'm very disconnected from the forum stuff. I say that I'm retired from the forums and from the drama, and I just want to sit back and make graphics for people.
Yeah, I don't know why it seems less dramatic today. I'm not too sure why. I remember being back in the day, but it seemed more dramatic and more cutthroat. I don't know why.
I think the difference is now it's mainly Discord. So Discord, you say something and then it's gone. It's miles up high. Yeah. No one jumps onto Discord and scrolls up to see what everyone else has been saying. I hope they don't do that because that would take ages. But with forums, it was there. You were prominent. It had your signature. Your statement was there. And even if the topic hadn't been touched for a while and nothing else in that section was talked about, it was right there at the top still. So it was more in your face. It was more easier to check up on. People were quoting other people and replying to them months later and sometimes even years later.
Yeah.
It's fun, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fun to get into internet arguments. Oh. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I remember signatures as well in forums. I just loved making like long signatures with like all the little details and things.
And
one of my favorite parts of early forums.
And I loathed telling people that there had to be certain pixel height and certain pixel length. So thank you for that. You give me.
Yes, from the moderator perspective. Yeah. As for, I'm going to move on to our next question, which is more about the favorite kinds of. Sorry, I'll actually say the question out loud. What are your favorite kinds of games and/or other media, and what about them inspires you to create? Either one of you can start. Actually, we'll start with Holder. Holder, what are your favorite kinds of games and other media?
I was a big fan of the MMOs when that was a big thing. Not necessarily World of Warcraft. A lot of the time I'll bring certain elements from that game into my battle as now, and that was Fly for Fun. I had a lot of great memories of that game. Again, a more light-hearted, more colourful MMO. It wasn't dark, it wasn't dingy, it wasn't, realistic. It was, for that, I like that. I like just gathering items, making my equipment better. I'm always one that goes for the better-looking equipment rather than the stronger equipment. So I was the only one as a knight to have a sword rather than an axe because I liked the way the swords looked, and I was super weak, but I didn't care. Anything with customizable stuff, even the old games. There was some good old racing games where I wouldn't get into the more like Colin McRae Rally on the PlayStation 1. I'd play the Tommy Mackinnon Rally because that had a racetrack editor. So I'd love just making my own stuff and letting other people play it. The game wasn't as good, but the fact is that track was mine and I made that. I always prefer those sort of things. When
it comes to your like animated battlers, there's a lot of like interchanging with like different weapons and male, female, different like lots of different options you can have and customizations. Would you say that maybe that came from your love of customization, where it's like you want to have all the battlers with different customized stances for each of the weapons and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
maybe I'm making.
That was one of the problems with the first set I was making, because I was giving them definitive weapons. I was like, well, what if someone doesn't want to be using that weapon? You know, I want to give them the choice of putting like visual equipment on them. I nearly went as far to make a whole character generator with different parts and different heads, and that was an absolute nightmare. It really, really was, figuring out the layers and everything like that. Actually,
I can only imagine.
Oh no, well, over on it might be a name from the past for many people, but over on Save Point forum, the Wolfman, who did a lot of work on the XP animated battler script, he's actually making a generator now for animated battlers using the old Half Kaiser sprites, and he's done some good work on it. He really has. He's been asking for like input from other spriters as well, but it's just, I know how much work it is. And he's doing great, but yeah, it definitely takes a lot of effort.
Is this save-point.org?
It is, yes.
It's still up. I'm just looking at it now.
It is. It's still there. And he's still...
Posts still happening.
He's still going. He actually made
I'm looking at
a more modern version of the animated battlers, the Minkoff animated battlers. He changed it that much. It was actually basically called it Anime Battle, Anime Bat. And that is all set up for like the 14 pose battlers that I use now. Do a lot of testing in that. But yeah, it's still up.
Wow, I'm looking at some of these early posts as well. There's one by a name that I still see around everywhere, Zeriab, very prominent community member, and just like a post from 2009 still there. So yeah,
he's a nice guy.
He really is.
You know, that's one of those things. You know, you'll occasionally see a name and you'll just remember, oh yeah, that guy was a nice guy. You know, and that's kind of a nice feeling.
Yeah, like
they're still around. They support the podcast like very much, and then they support lots of different projects. Like you just see those people around, and it's pretty heartwarming to say, they're still there. You know, still doing stuff.
Oh, it's always nice to see old names, and it's always nice when someone under a different name says, "Oh, I used to be called this," and you think, "Christ, I've known you for years." You know, it's like, I know you.
Yeah. How about yourself, Jason? Do you have any favorite types of games or other media that inspires you when you're creating?
Well, I think, like Holder mentioned about the bright colors and the happy feeling. I think there's a lot of sort of creative energy that comes out of something that has that sort of vibe to it. Yeah. That resonates with me a lot more than something that's grim, dark, and gray and brown and kind of drab. And you know, I want to see something bright and happy and exciting, and that feels like it can be taken in any direction at any moment. And that always gives me ideas because it feels like there's no limits.
Yeah, all that brightness and the sort of like the happy vibes and stuff. And I suppose that would be something that you were thinking about when you were creating like tile sets and resources and even your own personal games?
Yeah. You know, I think of games, you know, the biggest, most influential games on me when I was younger were games like Banjo-Kazooie, Paper Mario, that kind of thing. And they were bright and colorful. And something about that makes it feel like a location that you want to go to. You want to go there and spend time in it. But, like, I see a game like Dark Souls, and I'm like, I don't want to go spend time there. So I gravitate a lot more towards these kind of games where it's like, that looks like a fun, fluffy place to spend a couple hours.
Yeah, that doesn't really describe Dark Souls, the fun, fluffy place to spend a couple hours. It's not really the beach trip, but, you know, unless you've got a thing for getting hurt. But, yeah.
Some people do.
Yeah. The Dark Souls will be a holiday for them. But, yeah, interesting. Yeah, those are very interesting kind of influential sort of background into who you are and what inspired you. Yeah. That's the topics that was pretty serious. We've actually got a few more questions by the community. So we're going to transition to that topic now. That section. We're going to transition to that section now, which is the question box. Welcome to the question box. here's a segment where RPG Maker community users have asked questions related to game development and design that we probably don't know the answers to, but we'll try. Our first, well, we have a couple of compliments just from various parts of the Discord and stuff. Ellie from the RPGmaker.net Discord says, Time Fantasy is amazing. Holder is amazing too. And Speed Roby from the RPG Maker Discord says, not a question, but I heavily love the pixel art in both resource packs. So there's, the compliments.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. It's always it's cliche to say, but it's always nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good to, because even people who you think hear it all the time, but it's not always. It's every comment counts.
Yeah, because you obviously just make stuff and you put it out there, and then it just goes quiet, and you're like, anyone using it? It's just like, so it is nice to hear.
You bite your fingernails, kind of going, I hope it's good. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Do you like what I've made?
check the views. Yeah, the views are all right, and
yeah. How many retweets? No.
Yeah. It's weird because what I do as well, it's like, I just ask for donations now, but before it wasn't like for any money, so it's like, is what I'm doing worth it? I'm not making it for me, I'm making it for other people, so are people enjoying it? You don't really, people click, download it and use it, but if they don't say anything, you don't know. So it's always nice to hear.
Yeah. I get that with the podcast as well. Like, I get so many complimentary comments. It's so overwhelming. I'm so thankful to the whole community. I have a whole Discord server for RPG Maker Cola, which is just like mind-boggling to think of. I just made this thing. I was like, I hope 1 or 2 people listen. And then for some reason, people liked hearing my voice. I'm like, my voice is awful. And they're like, no, we like your voice. And slowly they convince me, okay, fine, my voice is okay. And they're like, no, you got a good voice. Do the podcast thing.
How do you think we feel we make graphics? We don't speak.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing, though. I suppose it would be similar for your packs as well, maybe, is that were you surprised when people liked what you made?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I've had a few people asking for me older stuff. I hate me older stuff now. The smaller ones and everything. They were like, could you do this, but not how you do it now? And it's like, but that was when I was worse. They're like, oh yeah, do it in that style. It's I've got a sprite worse. So
yeah. You just got to purposely do bad proportions and stuff. That's all you got to do. Yeah. But we've all improved. I can hear it in my own work as well. I feel like we're just improving and growing better and better. So yeah, it's good to hear those comments that are just like, you make amazing work, and it's just really heartening to hear. So keep heaping the compliments, on these two. Just keep them coming. Malangard from the Holder Discord asks, I think I do have a question, come to think of it. For the longest time, I never really found anyone else who made sizable sprite sheets of proper tall side view battlers, and I'm curious as to why that is, given that the RPG Maker resource community is pretty huge. I think this is for Holder mostly, isn't it?
Because it takes a lot of time. I mean, I mean, from the days like we were talking about earlier, when people used rips and things like that from other games, there was a lot of taller, non-chibi characters, but you saw a lot of them from like Ragnarok Online, I believe, was the game that got used a lot. A lot of 2D fighting games used sprites that got turned into characters. It's just for the time that it takes, you don't have to just move a little arm, like a stubby arm. You have to have it looking like there's some weight behind it. Like, if they've got long hair, you have to move the hair. So I think it's just everything that goes into it. I mean, even me bases that I do now, I've got a comment saying that they like them, but they're scared to sprite over the top of them. Because it's just so much movement, and, well, not so much movement, but even the slightest bit of movement's noticeable. So I think that's probably why. I think that's why it is a journey to go on.
It's complex. Yeah. It's got different parts. And I think
with pixel art, one thing you understand with experience is that the larger something is, it takes exponentially more time to create.
Yeah.
Because it's it's so many more pixels. You know, if
Definitely.
you something is only a small bit taller, say it's 6 pixels taller, that's still however many pixels wide it is too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more pixels you're working with, and the bigger something is, the more detail you have to have into it for it to look smooth, especially when you're animating.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have different, like, the amount of frames that you have to do.
Especially if you
depends,
limit yourself to 4 frames as well. I mean, 3 frames is just ridiculous. It's why I won't touch that. Minimum I'll go to is 4. But
yeah.
if you look at the likes of like early Capcom games, like the Street Fighters and all the brawler games, the amount of detail on those sprites it's mind blowing. You know, you zoom in, you see like the fingers moving, the hair strands moving, and they've all got the different flow to them. And that's only for an idle pose, and they make that flow into every other pose, and it's just, I can imagine a whole team just working on one part of the body.
Timeless, eh? Like, you look back at them and they still look good. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. Hawk Zombie from the Feathered Dead Discord. They're also a streamer, popular Twitch streamer. I really enjoy their work. Yeah, actually, sorry, I'm going to plug Hawk Zombie. Hawk Zombie streams I think every single weekday for like a couple of hours, RPG Maker games. Very useful and handy resource in the RPG Maker community. So shouts out to Hawk Zombie. They ask, for either guest, what are some, if any, instances where you had to deal with entitled clients, and how did you deal with them? For example, someone saying your work was too expensive, etc.
Oh, that's a complicated one.
I have never had a significant problem of this sort that comes to mind. And I've worked with a lot of clients with lots of small commission things here and there, and a couple larger projects as well. And I've never had a problem like this, at least nothing memorable. And I attribute that to communication. Yeah. I think that being upfront and transparent about your costs and the amount of time something would take, and just being very open about that kind of thing, will prevent any surprises and, honesty on both sides. If something is out of somebody's budget, they'll usually just tell me, okay, that's more than I can afford. And I'll say, no problem. I might even be able to recommend somebody else they can talk to. So I think that it's not so much the entitled client, because the more honest and transparent you are with people, the easier it is to avoid hard feelings on either end.
Do you feel like you know how to set your boundaries as well?
I guess so, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be emailing a random person I did a job and, telling them what I made for lunch that day.
I suppose what I'm talking about is when a client asks you something unreasonable, you know exactly how to respond in a way that respects your own boundaries as well as theirs, I guess.
Oh yeah, I have no problem saying no. And again, that comes with being honest and transparent about it. If there's something I can't do because I just don't have time for it, if I'm juggling multiple projects, I'll tell them straight up, I have too many projects going on right now. I'm going to have to say no to this big thing. Maybe you can come back to me in a couple weeks, or, maybe you should find somebody else for this. I think that as long as you're honest, there's no reason you can't just say no.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
They would respect that.
That's great advice.
Just being honest about it.
I wish you had told us that months ago. That's great advice. Because obviously I'm saving for something at the minute. And I try to just take on as much as I could right from the get-go. It's like, I'll put the time in and I'll make it work. And it does build up on you. So I wouldn't say it's from the like you said, the client side. It's overestimating what the time that I've got.
Yeah. It can be quite difficult indeed. Like to estimate that kind of stuff. I think it is. I think Jason kind of might have that innate skill, but it's the sort of it's that sort of negotiation and estimation of one's abilities and the ability to sort of make good.
I don't think that's a skill. I think that just comes from experience.
Mm-hmm.
That too. I think. Yeah, I'd say it was a skill. It could be a skill gained from experience as well. But like some people also inherently have it because some people have been working for a while and they still don't know how to manage their own workload and relationships with their clients. I've seen that from a third-person perspective, where teams have sort of broken apart because of bad relationships with their commissions and things like that. It's actually it can be quite a all-encompassing problem. So I think it was quite good to hear from you. You know when to say no, you know when to say yes, you know what you can do and what you can't do, and you work to that capacity. Yeah, I need to learn a little bit of that sometimes too. I sometimes overpromise, underdeliver, but I'd rather be the other way around. Yeah. Benny or Cash from the RPG Maker Cola Discord, who's he, asks, what resources, tools, or programs do you use to create?
To either of us, or who shall pick this one up?
We'll start with you. Hold it. What do you use?
Well, for many years, I used graphic scale. I actually paid for it before it became free.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I bought it multiple times.
You bought it multiple times. I think I'm going to have to buy it again when I can get another machine. Yeah. But I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I bought it 2 or 3 times.
It's great. It's nice. It's lightweight. Even making your own palettes is nice and easy. But I have moved on to A-Sprite. I found that a bit easier for doing animation frames. Setting the loops back and forward so I can see how it looks as I'm working on it. So, I mean, either of those is a great tool to use. It's not going to make it for you. A lot of people think, oh, what do you use to make this? I just need to click a filter and it'll make it. But it's nicer with like rotations and things like that. I mean, rotating pixel art is a nightmare anyway. But this, it makes it a bit easier. I found doing the weapons a lot easier to use it in A-Sprite. Visibility of layers across all frames is controlled on the timeline. Like your timeline, your frames and your layers are all set across the bottom. So yeah, that's the one I use. My one of choice is A-Sprite.
Yeah, I use graphic scale and A-Sprite. Mostly I'm still using graphic scale just because I've used it for so long. I'm very, very comfortable with it. Yeah. I've been using it for like 15 years. I also have A-Sprite, and I'll switch into that for some more complicated animations, and I do want to get into the habit of using it more because there's a lot to it. But it's hard to switch from something that you're just so comfortable with when you've been using it for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I have graphic scale open, and I'm doing a little bit of stuff as we're recording. And it's because it's just so comfortable and easy, I'm just so familiar with it. A-Sprite is really good. And if somebody is new, I would recommend, using A-Sprite just because there's so much to it, and it'll save you time in the long run if you're able to get used to that from the beginning.
Yeah, it's only because graphic scale like the back of your hand sort of thing. It's just like, just all the shortcuts are, you don't have to look any of them up. It's just like bam, bam, bam.
I have everything on graphic scale that I need mapped to my gaming mouse, so I can do it all one-handed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I haven't thought about that before, but that makes sense. Star Mage from the RPG Maker Cola Discord asks, how long does it usually take for you to make at least one resource pack for these amazing sprites?
Shall I start?
For me, that's impossible to answer. Yeah. Because each pack is different. The content is different.
Are there some that take like way longer than others? Are there some maybe particular ones where you've had a lot of trouble trying to like actually get them through the door?
I think it depends on, how much you define as a pack, right?
Right.
Like I have some, like my Omega Modern pack is really huge because that includes everything in it. It's intended to be enough for the entire game. Versus I have some smaller packs that are meant to be, single theme expansions that would go much quicker. And I even have even smaller ones that are focused around a even smaller theme that I might release as like a free pack, something as a small extra. So it really depends on the scope and scale of each one.
How about you hold up? I know you might not. Oh wait, you do put it into like resource packs per se, kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
it's supposed to.
But they're expanding.
The battlers and things like that. I've just started putting them out on itch, with a weapon set. But even then, it'll take months sometimes because you've got to link all the frames up to make sure the poses flow from one to the other. And basically the way I work in real life as well is I do like 4 12-hour shifts in a row and then have 4 days off. But I'll only get to spend like at least 8 hours over them 4 days off actually sitting down and working on stuff. So yeah, it can take a long time. But then when it comes to like doing monsters, sometimes the easier stuff where you'll just have to draw it and animate it, I've got to think about how does it move? You know, how does it stand? How does it breathe? How does it attack? You know, and people ask for like a little plant monster. It's like, all right, now what does it do? How does it hurt you? How does it look when it gets hurt? So even sometimes the simpler ones can take absolutely ages to plan out. Right. You know, it's knowing what people want as well. You've got to know what people want, because I'm not making it for me. I'm putting it out there, and if I put something out there that people don't want or don't want to use, then why? You know?
Yeah. You're very much... it's actually an interesting thing, because you are creating something to be consumed, and the very act of it being used is your success. Like, I think with game developers, they want their games to be liked no matter how big or small their developer base is. They like bigger audiences, but they also, what's important for them is to be liked. But I suppose there's a more immediate kind of thing. If it's being used in a game, that is just evidence that they like it and they want to, and that it works with whatever they're... So it's a little bit slightly nuanced, different success threshold, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people messages before as well and say, I really like this, but I want to change this and that and change this colour. Am I okay to do that? It's like, yes, go for it. You know, that's how I first started as well, by seeing other people's works and, you know, just changing that up and seeing how that would work and see if I like working to that aspect. And I like that and encourage that, you know, just go wild with it.
And ever since you've had it on Itch as well, have you got more donations, or do people donate at all on Itch, or has it kind of just, it's not been a major source for that? I guess it's only been about 50 days since, but...
Yeah, no, I've not had any donations yet. The only place that I've had donations through is the WordPress, which is the blog where I used to keep everything up to date, but WordPress has updated itself in a horrible way that it wants to put images in a certain order in places, and it doesn't work anymore. So I've had to come away from that. But no, just wanting to expand myself out.
Yeah, you just registered 50. You registered, it says 57 days ago on Itch, so there's still some days. So I'd encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you want to use holders, battlers, or packs, when you go to download one of those packs, if you're going to use it in your game, consider maybe putting a coin or two into the hat, you know.
All proceeds goes towards a new machine that'll actually be able to stream.
That would be great.
What I'm using at the minute's like 20 years old. So
wow,
that's why I was wondering if this audio program would actually work or not.
We need to get fundraisers to get hold of a new computer.
I couldn't. You know what it is? That new RPG Maker as well. It couldn't run that F-Seeker for the new animations.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
It wouldn't even run that. So I've got no means to operate in that.
We definitely need to get more people donating on that Itch page. Yeah, so go ahead and do that. And I also like to ask one thing. I forgot what it was. Let me think. Dang, it's slipped my mind. I had something useful I wanted to ask. Oh well. Oh no, there it is.
It's purple.
I have it.
It's purple. My favourite colour's purple. There we go.
Yes. Okay, but it is something to do with favourites. I want to ask each of you, what is the favourite thing, if you have a favourite thing, that you've created?
Ooh. Jason, do you want to take this one so I can have time to think?
Favourite is hard because, I mean, if it's a personal favourite, it will probably be some of the goofy stuff that I make for my own games. Like, you know, I'll put like a funny little character in a game jam game or something. And I would really have a lot of fun with it because I'm just making like a funny guy with a funny facial expression just to amuse myself. So there's always something there, you know, that's different. But if you're looking in a bigger sense of favorite, time fantasy as a whole, I think it's something that I'm proud of because there's just so much to it.
Yeah.
And it's so big and expansive. I put so much time into it that I can't not love it, even though I kind of hate it because I've gotten a lot better since I first put it out there. You
have to
So
stick
I'm
to
really
a certain style now.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the next thing, but I do have so much time into it, and it's so expansive that I have to take a lot of pride and ownership in it.
Well, the thing about that, I think one of the things that make it so unique is its expansiveness. Like the very fact that it's one style that has so many tiles that is in that one style makes it so you can create an entire game with all these different environments in that same style. And that's why I think it's one of the reasons why people have used it so much is just because of how diverse it is.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. The idea is to create an entire RTP of my own that it continually gets bigger and bigger, so people have enough content to make a full
It
game.
might be bigger than the RTP, I think.
Yeah, let's hope so.
More tiles. Anyway, how about you, Holder?
Just looking through stuff, I think the one that I had the most fun making would be it's based on the frog from Final Fantasy VII. That little animated battler. Because someone had made a script add-on where you could transform your main character or one of your characters into an enemy. And I just thought that's the frog from Final Fantasy VII through and through. So it was even just making it wiggle as it's standing there in its little idle pose. Doing the little flips and things like that. I loved it. So yeah,
nice.
That brought us a lot of joy to make.
Awesome. Blind from Twitter asks, Jason, are you ever surprised to see how widely adopted the Time Fantasy packs have become? They're as widespread as RefMap in the old days. A great accomplishment.
Oh, thank you. That's a huge compliment because the old we used to call them Mac and Blue. That was a huge influence on the whole thing. Obviously, Time Fantasy is nowhere near as good as those. I'm hoping that the next thing I do will be more of that level. I would say it was somewhat surprising at first, but as we just talked about, the more that I release, the more it makes sense that people are using them simply because it's so expansive. I know from my own experience using RPG Maker and wanting graphics for it, that what people want is enough stuff to make a full game in one single style. So the more that I put out in the same style, of course people are going to be using it because that's what they want. And if anybody out there is making their own asset packs, considering doing that kind of thing as well, I would tell you, the biggest advice is do the same thing. Make a lot in one style with a lot of variety of things that can mesh together because that's what people are always going to be looking for.
As Kino from the RPG Maker Cola Discord asks, what are some of the more challenging pieces you've worked on? And additionally, what are some processes or tips you could give to fledgling creators?
I think the challenging pieces for me would be just try and stop myself from expanding further. It's like when I'm making an animated battler, people then asked, have you got a character set for it? And it's like, well, no. Oh, have you got a face set for it? No, I don't really do that. Have you got a portrait for it? It was like, and then I tried to take on so much more. So it was like trying to just not expand myself too much. It's like, so that was a challenge too, because I actually started doing that. And then obviously back then I was making all different hairstyles and parts for one character, so then I'd have to do that in the character set and the face sets for them. So that was a big challenge. And then it took us a good half a year to do one set for this one character. So that was a big challenge. It was a big learning curve as well to never do that again.
Yeah. You got to stay within your bounds, I suppose, because you're only one person.
Yeah, my answer would probably be the same. I recently, I guess it was about a year and a half ago at this point, but I did a bunch of faces. And that was brutal for me because it's out of my comfort zone. And normally I would like to push out of my comfort zone, but it pushed too far, because what I do is very specific and specialized. I do little tiny characters and little tiles. So I don't have as much training in classical, anatomy and whatnot. So the faces were a big challenge for me.
Interesting. Yeah. Harmless from the RPGmaker.net Discord asks, a question for both. What is the creative process for a resource maker, and how does it differ from game developing? Is there still room for self-expression in the world of resource crafting?
Oh, definitely. Because it's the style that you put out there, self-expression, but it's to not take it too far.
Yeah.
Because
you want them to be usable by others, I guess.
Yeah, and to be widespread. So it's not, like you say, if we don't, myself and Jason, like I was saying earlier, we don't like dark, grim games, we like colourful, brighter games. So if you do make a sort of like grim horror sort of based tiles and resources, you're not going to get that sort of picked up by people wanting to make a light-hearted game, something that people can interpret differently. So I don't know, the creative process I'd say really is making something that's more universal. A lot of people said, but why don't you just make the chibi style sprites that RPG Maker has already?
Because they're ugly.
and they are though, and they never used to be like that as well. So it was at the time, even 2003, they had more proportioned battler sprites than they do now. Even the character sets have gone from being like a nicer proportioned human to, the head's bigger than the body itself, and it just,
I don't understand it.
I know. So it's something, you've got to make something that you're comfortable with doing, but also that other people will be comfortable using. And that's...
Well, I must say, though, one of the things that probably influenced that was the increased resolution. You're forced to use, you got to use 32 by 32 now, and then, okay, you got to use 48 by 48 now, but then you're like, but you got to make it accessible to everyone. So it's like, wait, but more pixels probably mean that it looks more customized to, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense from an artist point of view, does it? And the less pixels there were, I guess the more you could make these generic archetypes. I might be way off base.
Yeah, well, it was going off what we were saying earlier. You put more, the bigger something is, the more pixels you've got to use. It's harder to then create something that looks, nicer and flows better. And they just, I don't know, they just went in a complete opposite direction. I don't think, myself, I've seen a lot of people not happy with the latest RPG Maker, in-game graphics, not like the picture side of it, but more like the pixel and the sprite work. It's very sort of people use it because it's there until they find Time Fantasy and things like that.
You know what? Let's just get Jason a deal with Digica to ship Time Fantasy with RPG Maker, and then just give Jason $1 billion, and then that will be that will solve everything. That will solve everything, and then put Holder's Battlers in there as well, and there we go. You've got a better engine. No, yeah. Anything? Have you got anything to say about that, Jason?
What is the creative process for a resource maker, and how does it differ from game developing? My response to that would be, it is game developing. Where we're making assets for video games.
Right.
I assume that the question is talking more about, since I'm generally creating assets for other people rather than for myself. But honestly, I do both. I've been using, RPG Maker for 20 years. I know what I would have wanted when I was looking for graphics. So I make things for, myself from 20 years ago. And it seems to be working,
Yeah, I think from back then as well, the most requested thing was modern tile sets. I remember seeing that a lot. There was nothing out there for modern day things.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of it is thinking about, what would I want if I'm using RPG Maker? So I am making it for other people, and I'm also making it for myself too.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's important to realize this person, Harmless, they're pretty excellent artists in of themselves, so they could probably create resources for others as well, but their games look very distinctive, so they're probably asking from that point of view as well, where they they could possibly go into resource crafting if they wanted to, but they're just asking, I guess, from that angle, is it different to game developing for someone like themselves who could create that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of the time artists, when they are working on a project, don't want to share their work because then it makes their project look less unique, if you know what I mean. Because they're putting out the content out there and picked up by other people, that takes the sort of charm away from their own game and what makes their game stand out. Because a lot of it is graphics. A lot of the time, you click on a game's page, it's the first thing you look at, the first thing you see is the title and the graphics, you know. So I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the opposite with that.
Yeah.
Actually, this past week, I've been working a lot on a personal project of mine. And as I was working on it, I was making some graphics for it, and I thought this would be a really cool thing to share with my patrons.
Yeah.
So I edited it, and I changed it into the time fantasy style, and I shared it with them. And even though it's something I originally made for my own use, I thought, people could get a lot of use out of this. They might think it's really cool. So I don't necessarily feel the need to hold things too close to myself, other than maybe, like a specific character. But that's where you get into the point of where you're designing things very specifically for a game, where it wouldn't have general appeal in the first place.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't mind sharing. I'll use things between projects, and if I'm working on a game for myself, I will release graphics for other people to use, because we're all in this together.
Exactly. Yeah. Waka from the RPGmaker.net Discord asks, which one is your favorite RTP character that is not Alex, of course? Why not Alex?
I would say
Anybody?
I would say mine, but it would set off a lot of devices in people's homes. Just chuck an A at the end of Alex, and that's mine from 2K3.
Oh, right.
From 2K and 2K3, I'll always have a fond memory of, there's like a big burly pirate guy with a big beard, and then there was also like a pirate girl who had like a purple bandana.
Oh yes,
and they seemed like a pair, and that kind of thing always gave me inspiration, because I was like, these two characters go together, so I need a pirate faction, or that kind of thing where there's these little connections between characters, even just something as small as using a same color across them. It makes it feel like, oh, this gives me an idea to build out a world with, and that's the kind of thing that I really loved from looking at the old RTP characters.
Nice. Yeah. Excellent. Wait, Holder, did you answer that question? I can't remember.
Yes, I said I couldn't say our name because it would set off a lot of devices in people's homes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Excellent. Okay. And that is our questions from the community. Thank you for asking all those awesome questions. It's great. You're awesome. Now we're going to go into our next section, which is the deep dive. Welcome to the deep dive. In this section, we're just going to dive deep into each of our guest projects and figure out what went on during the process, inspirations, and elsewise. Our first, I suppose we're going to choose one project from each, but we're kind of going to go into like a sort of semi-unexpected kind of direction. And I've got plans. I've got evil plans. Evil Dark Overlord plans. But we'll get to that soon. So we'll start with Jason. And the project Time Fantasy. So apparently, Jason's been involved with RPG Maker for resources and stuff for a while, but it started with I don't know if it started with the Omega Modern RPG assets. Was it that came first, or was it the Time Fantasy pack?
It started with a set called Old School Modern, which is currently discontinued, at least on my main itch store. I think that it's still sold via RPG Maker. But I discontinued that personally because it's old in the sense that I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of making something so large and expansive for other people to use. It's kind of a mess. So I recently, a couple years ago, completely remade Omega Modern, which covers all of the same themes and types of characters and things. But it's just a lot bigger and a lot better than the original Old School Modern was.
Right.
And then and then in between those two was when I really got going with time fantasy.
Yeah. So, I think you talked earlier about what inspired you to sort of create it and where it started, but basically, what did it feel like, I suppose, starting, and what was the journey of starting to create time fantasy, and then I suppose you would start selling it, and how did it come to be?
I've talked a lot about how the original idea is that I'm, making the graphics for myself and how the kind of games I would want to make with RPG Maker. So it just got started that way. I would make characters and tiles and then...
Was it always selling on itch as well, or did you sell it somewhere else first, or how was
it? It started as RPG Maker DLC. Sold through the official RPG Maker. And then over time, as it's gotten bigger and more expansive, I've also set up my own store on itch, where it's slightly more expensive, but it has a full open license.
Right.
So the RPG Maker version is a little cheaper, but they have the limited discount license where it's specific to use only in RPG Maker.
Oh, yes.
So... I'll always have everything formatted for easy use for RPG Maker users. That's where I got my start, and that's where a lot of my customers are. But going forward, I'm also going to be more expansive because I'm seeing a lot of people use it in other engines these days, like Unity and even custom engines people are using. And I think that, we've talked about before, the reason people are so attracted to it is simply because there's so much of it. And I'm seeing that expanding beyond the RPG Maker community, and I think for the same reasons.
Yeah. And it sort of just grew and grew, right? And
I've been working on it for 6 or 7 years now, and I release a couple, maybe 2 big expansions a year and then a few small ones as well. So it just keeps growing with new themes and characters all in the same style.
Yeah. I've got to say it looks really good in 3D as well. When people have used it in Smile game builder, it looks
I've seen a lot of
very nice.
A lot of really cool creative things people are doing with it.
It's great.
It's cool when I see something in 3D, or if I see someone make like a Minecraft texture pack or something with it. There's all crazy stuff people are doing with it, and that's always really fun.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier She Dreams Elsewhere has like a major edit of your stuff, which is kind of like putting a lot of black color. I was interviewing, Davion Gooden, and he said that it kind of came by accidentally kind of filling black into the the thing, and oh wait, that looks kind of nice. And then did they contact you about that, or did it kind of come as a surprise? Did you just look at this thing like, whoa, okay?
Yeah. I listened to that podcast. That was a good one. I saw those, and at first I didn't know it was mine. It looked so completely unique. So and when I did realize they were mine, that felt really rewarding because I was able to see somebody take it in their completely own direction and make it their own. And, since I got my start editing graphics from other people, it always feels really good to see people take something and it's completely unrecognizable from my own work. And I'm the kind of person who says that, and that makes me happy. That I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's excellent. That's awesome. I think, and you also have some games that you've created, like Isel's Observatory, Symbiote, Man of War, and you have Jubilee as well that has a beta release.
Yeah.
You're still making games and stuff, and do you have something that do you kind of like have to balance the art and the game making, or is it something you do in your spare time for fun?
Yeah. The games you mentioned, Symbiote and Isel's Observatory, were made for the indie game making competition.
Right. Yeah.
I entered that a couple times, month-long projects.
Symbiote came third, right?
Yep. And Isel's Observatory came second.
Oh,
but
wow!
Because of the prizes that year, it didn't win anything.
Oh.
Like the prize structure was really weird.
Oh.
So like the first place prize got money and third place got money because it happened to win a voting award. But I came in second place and got nothing.
Wow.
But I had a lot of fun making the game, and I'm proud of the end product. And those kind of month-long projects like that they're a lot of fun. because it gives me a chance to do something new that's not the usual RPG style. You know, that's like you mentioned Jubilee's the current project I'm working on, and it's another side-scrolling platformer type of game, and I'm making that for my own self, you know, for my own enjoyment. You know, hopefully it'll be cool to sell when I finish it, if I finish it. But the reason I'm making it is because it's a direct change of pace from the RPG style. So if I'm working a lot on RPG tiles and then I need something completely different, I can make like a fun side-scrolling animation, and it's a completely different vibe, and that'll be able to reboot my energy. So excellent. I like to balance multiple projects, and I think that people say don't take on too many projects, and I agree with that, but I would say don't take on multiple projects that are similar. I think that I have 2 or 3 projects and they're all completely different from each other, and that helps me motivate by bouncing between them. But if I had like 2 projects that were both very similar, that would be really rough to get either of them going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. We'll switch quickly to Holder. Holder, you've created this massive, as we said, animated battlers, like with 13 poses often of them. They have like 4 frame sheets, which is different from the RPG Maker default sheets.
Yeah.
And there's sort of just, you're free to use, actors, bases, monsters, and this like seamless sort of like animated battlers that you use both, to plug into the game, but also things that people can build on top of. It's just quite expansive as well. Like, we talked about Time Fantasy being expansive, but you've created these battlers for a long time and they're all in the same style, and it's sort of, expansive and extensible as well. Like people can use it for their own purposes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, how did this all start, and what were your inspirations for starting it, and how did it kind of progress? What was the feelings that happened as it went along?
Well, it was back in the days of XP, and it was Minkoff's animated battlers, and that used 11 poses. Because obviously with XP there was no default side view battle system. It went from like 2K3 having this standard side view battle system, but was still there, and then taking it away. So I think a lot of people wanted that back. So that script was great, but again, it had a lot of like rips and other elements from other games that there was nothing original there, and people were sort of like the newer RPG makers just taking the character sets and animating them. So it was, I got in touch with them. I said, is there any way we can have a few more poses, because really there wasn't everything there that I felt was necessary in a battle,
Right.
Even just like I think it was the separating like the skill and magic. Like a casting was like one animation, so I felt like they needed 2 of them. And then obviously the credits at the 4th row, that was something that was missing from 2K3 again. There would always be this section that wasn't used in the engine, but was there to say who made it, you know? Because a lot of the times now, people post resources and the comment is, I found this on the internet. Who made it? Oh, I don't know, but that guy shared it. So it was very much
the nebulous internet, just somewhere out there.
So I always like to have that little bit in there. But
so it's really flexible and extensible, and you could use it in a lot of different situations.
Yeah,
and people just went, they loved you to use it.
I've actually seen someone make like a fighting game with them. It was with the older style ones, so I enjoyed seeing that.
That's great.
But I've got about 100 in this new style now, so I've just pushed past 100. But it's one of them things where it still doesn't feel like a lot. Yeah.
Actually, I read that thing about, you had to reinvent.
Yes.
Like you did it again, right?
Yeah.
Why was that? What happened there?
Again, it was going back to the resolutions getting bigger. They were a lot smaller compared to the older engines. So I think they pretty much doubled the size of the frame, and with having bigger prominent weapons as well. So it wasn't just a couple of pixels for a sword. You could have like something with a lot more detail in it, so we can see when you have changed weapon. It was just
excellent. Wow. Yeah, I mean, so anyone who wants to use those animated battlers in the style and wants to create their own stuff, they can go and check out Holder's stuff, get the graphics packs, and also donate money, give Holder money, get them a new computer, and also Jason's Tilesets as well, and characters and everything. Just go ahead and consume. Just use it for your games. They're just amazing. I just wanted to ask some shared questions for both of your projects as well. That actually, for the listener, we discussed beforehand a little bit about which topics might be useful to bring up, and I think we've got a list of some. Like our first question that I've got something about like burnout and productivity. I was thinking both of you create a lot of resources, both for Time Fantasy and Holders Battlers and other stuff. How do you manage, say, burnout when it comes to being productive and when it comes to creating all this stuff? Do you ever have burnout, and how do you kind of manage that?
I'm going through that right now. I am right in the middle of it. Just like I say, I've got a couple of commission works that I'm doing, which has taken us away from the actual animated battler side of it. So it's been hard getting back into that and continuing with that whilst the other things are over the top of us, because I know I need to get them done, but at the same time it just feels like I kind of move forward with them. So definitely in the burnout phase, I'm opening the program, sitting with it for 20 minutes, doing a few little alterations and just not being happy with what I'm making at the minute. So I think I'm really in that burnout zone at the minute. So
it's kind of become aware to me that some people might not know what burnout is. I'll just kind of, for me, it feels like it's the state, when you're like emotionally, physically, or mentally exhausted, which is usually caused by too much excessive or like prolonged stress. So it's when you're like overwhelmed or emotionally drained, and it usually happens when there's like lots of constant demands that you're unable to fully meet, and that causes you to like decrease in interest and motivation that kind of led you into the role in the first place. So it can like reduce productivity, sap your energy, and make you feel sort of hopeless and a little bit helpless, I guess, a little bit. Yeah. So that's, I guess, sort of what burnout is for those who, like, especially for maybe English as a second language listeners who might not fully understand what that word means. But yeah,
that sounds a little extreme.
Yeah, it can sound extreme.
I think for me, it's more of just if you're working on one thing for a long time, or if you have I think that for me, burnout is when I have a hard time getting into the flow of creating something. Like if I've been staring at the same thing for so long, and then I, sit at it, I'm like, I don't even know what to do, And it's not necessarily because of any challenge or any kind of pressure, I think it's, for me at least, it's very specifically, a work thing, in the sense of, you can't keep your mind on it. It's hard to focus. And I think that just comes most often, as a failure of managing time.
Yeah.
For me, it's easy to get lost in doing the same thing. I'll be sitting here doing, shifting a tiny little pixel around for 12 hours straight, and then the next day you come back to it and you're like, oh my god, I can't do this again.
Yeah.
And so but I do have to do it again, because that's what pays the bills. So the way to manage that, like I mentioned before, for me is